Konichiwa Minasan. After shoveling an estimated 800 tons of snow this winter, give or take, it was time to get dirty once again. This winter, I recognized the need to make this house winter ready. This may sound strange, and maybe it is. Growing up in Canada, I've experienced harsh Canadian winters. I have walked to work, minus 40, in the snow, uphill both ways, but our house was always warm. I am not used to Japanese winters. It's time to insulate. Installing insulation on a drop ceiling was a new challenge. Unlike what I had done last summer, I now had to watch my every step. As the floor bulged below me, sometimes up to 6 inches, I would hear cracks and picture myself falling 10 to 15 feet down onto a table. The worst fact being I would then have a hole in the ceiling. I realized I could step gently on the cross beams, but even that was a risk. I chose to do as much as I could from the main structure. Cleaning above the tea room and shrine rooms was so much easier than above the kitchen last summer. Although it meant that there was no dirt insulation protecting it from the get-go, it meant that I wasn't shoveling. These rooms were instead protected by large chuchikabe walls going all the way up to the roof, which created a series of small rooms, creating air pockets trapping the warmth, if you can call it that, in the attic. There's a good angle. You can really see how these horizontal beams are just completely tied on with ropes, just held together that way with rounds and rounds and rounds of rope, which are still holding after 150 years. And then this must be from the 1979, just adding a bit more of a stability. Anyways, this is how the project is going so far. It's looking pretty good, but I wanted to get all the way past that wall, and there is no access. That's where I think the Murder Hornets live, on the other side of that wall. So I really wanted to get up there. I'm gonna see if I can get up another way, but for now, that's it. What a fun project. Okay, a little bit of soot under the eyes. Looking almost like a Swedish death metal band. All I needed to do was clean out the fallen debris and soot which had accumulated in the generations of using a wood fireplace for warmth and cooking, and then lay my insulation on top of the drop ceilings installed in 1979. Winter here is no joke. A friend of mine had warned me about Kaminka life. He had said it is a good idea to keep your olive oil in the fridge at night in the winter if you don't want it to freeze, because your fridge will be warmer than your kitchen when you wake up in the morning. I thought that this was a joke. It is not. Although the room I was sleeping in was a toasty 18 degrees, or 65 Fahrenheit, as soon as I walked into the kitchen for the necessary first 2 cups in the morning, I would turn on the kerosene heater and check the thermometer, which would read a warm 3 degrees above zero. My friend was right, the olive oil was rock hard, and I was reaffirmed that we need to stop bleeding heat. Building upon what I had learned last summer, I placed a massive order on Amazon Japan and had 15 boxes of rockwool delivered to the house. Although I've been told that 12 inches or about 30 centimeters of insulation are necessary to get an R40 rating, believe me when I say that this already makes a big difference. This initial insulation is more of an interim solution, as there are a number of ways this house is bleeding heat, such as through the single pane glass windows, which will hopefully be addressed sometime this coming summer, as well as underfloor winds that come through the tatami mats. These issues are all addressable, and in time, this house will be toasty warm. Nozawa Onsen has a spectacular microclimate unlike what I have seen before. With winds coming off of Mongolia and across the East China Sea, it seems to gust down the Nagano valleys, depositing insane amounts of snow. It doesn't get too cold in winter, averaging -5 and at times dropping as low as -10. I wasn't joking before about experiencing -40 in Canada. At -10, the nostril hair hasn't even frozen yet. But it is the perfect temperature for snow creation and leaves you dreaming for warmth when you come inside after a day of powder, or in my case, shoveling snow. This application of insulation is probably not the best of examples. With rockwool, it is my understanding that the insulation comes from the air pockets formed in the wool. To keep the warmth inside the room below, it needs to have a solid pressure throughout the space. Usually this is done by creating pressure between struts, making it easy to create small insulated pockets. As this is a drop ceiling and it doesn't have struts, it was a challenge to create one system without bleed channels where heat could easily escape. I needed to place extra care to ensure pressure was applied wherever sheets of insulation met, wherever I had to cut the sheets to get around wood barriers, as well as especially in the gaps along the Chuchikabe walls.
Now I think that's, well, I guess it kind of helps if I give you some light. I think that's finally got it. This area now is rock wool insulated everywhere, as tight as I possibly could. Still some work to do, and I think if anything, I'll just put more layers of insulation on it afterwards. And yeah, I think I'm gonna have to seal up this area over here to make sure no hornets come in and start nesting, but that's for another day. Whew, job done. So this is the part of the new addition, blended in with the old. You can see the original beam there just cut, braced, and all that work together. Still very large beams. Then here, for the pitch black, you can see this is the old section of the house, and that's where I want to lay the insulation here on the main room all the way around. I'm gonna have a trouble trying to figure out how to do that. Here it'll be easy, but where I have to cut around those beams, it's gonna be very difficult. So I have no idea what that is up over there in the corner. Looks like satchels of wood, or would be offerings, paper. If anybody has a clue, please let me know.
I followed the same process on the drop ceiling above the main room, where I was especially glad I didn't fall through the ceiling, as that drop would have been devastating. While unable to clean the soot before laying the insulation, I was able to take the time to inspect the electrics of the main light, which seemed okay enough, and I was able to find access to the murder hornets. I destroyed their old nest, and this coming summer, I will be ready.
That's almost got it. Just miscalculated by one box, but otherwise, this roof is looking pretty darn insulated. Yeah. And there we go. We got it done.